when the sound of buzzing fills the air in Central Europe. It's summer, high season in the insect kingdom. A time to feed and a time to breed. But as it gets colder, life gets tough for insects. Some birds head south, while some mammals hibernate or endeavor to survive. But where do all the insects go? It's late summer, harvest time. Buzzing and humming fills the air. Insects gather nectar and pollen. The color and shine of ripe fruit proclaims that they're ready to be eaten. Apple trees are the star attraction here. Their sweet fruit provides a chance to load up on calories before winter comes. It's heaven for many hungry insects. Each has evolved its own special way of dealing with the coming winter. Their paths will soon separate as they use different strategies to survive. Fallen apples are a favorite of hornets. Although adult hornets are predators, the juice of apples is an energy-rich food they don't pass up. Gathering this food source is the fuel to prepare their colony for the winter. Hornets often build their nest inside hollowed trees. A guardian hornet at the entrance checks who's coming and going and fans fresh air inside. The nest construction has been underway since the spring. Workers constantly expand their home with a pulp made of chewed wood, but this residence isn't permanent. The colony will only live here for this one summer. Inside the nest with this single entrance is the nursery, which fills the entire structure. There's no food storage here, and the workers tirelessly feed the larvae the harvested apple juice. Presiding over the colony is the much bigger queen. She continuously lays eggs, each into its own cell. Now in late summer, the nest is home to as many as 700 workers. This is their peak population, but none of the workers and not even the queen will survive the winter. But their hard work will ensure a new queen and a new colony next spring. Right next door, there's another outpost of the insect kingdom, a honeybee hive. Bees have a different strategy than the hornets. Their plan is for the whole colony to survive the winter. Workers with yellow pollen sticking to their back legs return to the hive to unload their bounty. But some members of the colony are barred from entering. At the hive entrance, a cruel drama is unfolding ahead of winter. Guards stop all the drones, the male bees, and ruthlessly expel them. Now that the mating season is over, all drones are expelled from the hive, since they are no longer of any use. Drones are unable to feed themselves, so would be a drain on the hive's food reserves. They're left to starve in exile, sacrificed to ensure the colony survives winter. Meanwhile, the worker bees busily stock up on winter supplies. Unlike hornets, bees have vast areas of the hive dedicated to storing food. Some cells hold protein-rich pollen, while others hold nectar, which will thicken into honey. These stores are necessary to support the hive, which can be home to up to 60,000 bees. While the queen can live up to 5 years, her workers will only live for 6 frenetic weeks in summer, preparing the hive for winter. It's all so that these larvae can become winter bees, which can live up to 6 months, ensuring the hive survives the cold season. The days still feel pleasantly warm. But as the sun sets, temperatures can plummet. Morning arrives, clad in a layer of fine, cool mist. And dew laces leaves, blossoms, and even the wings of dragonflies. Like all insects, they are cold-blooded, their body temperature changing with the air temperature. The cold night leaves them stiff and unable to move. They sunbathe to reach operating temperature. Most adult dragonflies live for only one summer, dying when winter sets in. It's their larvae, known as nymphs, that survive the winter. The nymph lives underwater and, depending on the species, can remain there for up to 4 years before leaving the water to become an adult dragonfly. It breathes by drawing water into its body and over internal gills. In contrast, the great diving beetle must visit the surface for oxygen. It captures air under its wings like a scuba diver and can then stay submerged for longer periods of time. Fast-moving ambush hunters, they're capable of taking fish almost as big as themselves as they stock up on calories for the coming winter. Above water, as fall approaches, other species of the forest are just reaching maturity. Mushrooms stretch their caps out of the ground, spreading their spores and propagating the next generation. They spend most of the year beneath the Earth's surface as mycelium, a root-like weave. Still deeper under the forest floor, a strange creature is stirring. This is the larva of a famed beetle. It looks nothing like its parents, and to the untrained eye, there's no clue to the animal it will become. The larva lives underground for up to 6 years, feeding on decaying wood and building up fat reserves. The insulated earth provides a perfect home, especially in the cold winter. After about 5 years of growth as a larva, it digs out an underground chamber in the soil to begin a dramatic transformation. With the early autumn, this larva prepares to pupate, the final stage of its metamorphosis, the jaw structures revealing the impressive adult it will become, a stag beetle. Autumn paints the leaves in a rich palette of colors. The fruits of the forest ripen, only to be hidden by a jay in his winter larder. The dormouse forages for beech nuts, life-saving fat reserves for the long winter sleep. Fog dances, blanketing the woods. Leaving the valley cloaked with mist. The meadow saffron or autumn crocus emerges, a rare splash of vibrant color. As the weather grows colder and wetter, the hornets embark on some home improvements to their nest ahead of winter, reducing the size of their front door to prevent heat loss. But they're doomed. Unlike their cousins, the honeybees, neither their colony nor their nest are designed to stockpile supplies and keep them warm during the cold winter months. In the nest, significantly fewer workers are now active. But there's still a gruesome job to do. They drag live larvae from their cells and dump them outside the nest to die. They no longer need new workers. Outside, the larval cemetery grows. They've even stopped feeding their queen. After giving birth to this colony, she's starved out of her own kingdom and dies after only a year of life. A lucky few larvae still receive food. They're the only ones left in the colony who have a chance to survive as next year's queens. As the hornets clean house, ladybugs prepare for the big chill. With no nest to speak of, they need another way to survive the winter cold. They hunt for shelter, following aggregation pheromones to nooks and crannies between boulders and wall cracks. In popular spots, they often gather in the hundreds. This helps reduce dehydration. They are one of the amazing creatures capable of producing a type of antifreeze, which allows them to cope with temperatures as low as 14 degrees Fahrenheit. In their secure niches with antifreeze pumped through their bodies, they will cease to eat and enter a type of suspended animation. They'll stay here for months, not venturing outside to forage even on warmer winter days. As fall progresses, cranes are among the many species of birds flying south, where food is easier to find. In northern climates, barely anything blooms in fall, except the ivy, which unfurls its modest blossoms. Butterflies and bees, wasps and hoverflies arrive in droves, attracted by the last food source before winter tightens its icy grip. The Red Admiral tops up its energy reserves on nectar, ready for an epic long-haul flight. It's one of the last butterflies seen before winter. And just like migratory birds, it flies south for the cold season. Leaving Central Europe to travel an incredible 600 miles. They cross alpine passes over 8,000 feet high to start a new generation of admirals in the frost-free climes of southern Europe. While they're heading south, groundhogs retreat into sometimes elaborate, padded nest chambers to hibernate until spring. North of the Alps, autumn still has some golden days in store. Vineyards glow, and the fall sun ripens the final grapes of the season, which prove irresistible to the last surviving hornets. The fermenting grapes provide a drunken farewell feast for their final days of life. Only the new young queens that have emerged have any chance of surviving the winter. Like many insects, they take shelter deep underground, where they're protected by the insulation of the earth. There's the promise of new life here, too. A clutch of tiny earwig eggs lies in an underground incubator. A tasty meal for an earth runner, a predatory centipede. But the mother of the eggs is here to protect them. The earwig is a dedicated mother, a rarity in the insect world. Agitated by any trespassers, she spreads her pincer, ready to defend her offspring. The intruder retreats. An earwig clutch holds up to 70 eggs. Every one barely 1/16 of an inch long, smaller than the head of a matchstick. The mother constantly brushes the eggs with her mouthparts, cleaning off molds and keeping the clutch damp so it doesn't dry out in the winter air. Unusual for an insect, she'll care for her clutch throughout the cold season. In woodlands, falling levels of chlorophyll turns the leaves from green to gold. In the clearings, the roars of rutting red deer can be heard. It's a few weeks since the alien larva transformed in its cozy chamber, 12 inches underground. It's now a fully developed male stag beetle. He lies quietly on his back, in his cradle, barely moving to save energy. He'll remain hidden in the warmth and security of his little chamber, safe from the ravages of the winter. until spring comes. Because outside, it's getting cold. The dormouse has long since withdrawn into a cave for winter sleep, curled up into a ball to stay warm. As the temperature plummets, the fog turns into hoarfrost, a frozen water vapor that covers the landscape. Most insects have disappeared. But for some, the first frost is an incredible wake-up call. As soon as the temperature drops below freezing and night falls, a spectacular event unfolds. The winter moths emerge. At first, the males of these 1-inch-long insects swarm around the trees. Later that night, winter moth females crawl up the tree trunks. They look like a completely different species. It's time for them to find a mate, but their small stub wings are useless for flying. Instead, they stay put and emit strong-smelling pheromones into the air, which can attract males from a distance of up to more than half a mile. In freezing temperatures, the oddly matched couples mate. Shortly after, the females lay their fertilized eggs in cracks in the bark. Both males and females die within days, without eating a single meal. They emerge only to produce their eggs, which will withstand the winter cold and hatch in the spring. The first snow falls. Underground, insulated from the icy outside world, the temperature is slightly warmer and more stable, the key to survival for underground insects. A tiny spider has entered the breeding chamber of the earwig. It's got its eye on a tasty egg. The mother is already on her guard. She alternates between cleaning and attack. But the spider won't give up. The mother attacks again, raising her tail to strike. A blow from those pincers could kill. The spider retreats, leaving the clutch of earwig eggs unharmed. Mother and young are safe for now. The snowy landscapes look tranquil and beautiful. But winter can be deadly. Mammals have evolved to have a thick, life-saving layer of fur. It's a struggle to reach food, and the cold means they need more energy than usual. As the temperature plunges, streams start freezing. But under the ice, the water temperature is relatively warm, and the stream bed never gets colder than 39 degrees Fahrenheit. The dragonfly nymph has retreated here for the winter. The cold dramatically slows its metabolism, so it lies still and waits, surviving off what it ate earlier in the year. It won't need to eat again until spring. This same tactic is also used by the great diving beetle. The ice stops it surfacing for air, but there's enough stored in the scuba tanks under its wings to last right through winter. A slower winter metabolism requires less oxygen and no food. They calmly lie on the stream bed, waiting for the thaw. A thick layer of snow now covers the land. Somewhere under this white blanket, the young hornet queen has buried herself under the earth and endures winter. Her former home, long abandoned. But the old hornet nest has a visitor. The shrew can't hibernate. It must stay active, hunting for insects all year round, or it will freeze to death. It scours the empty hornet nest to find some dead larvae, a nice package of protein in the lean winter. Next door, the hive is humming. In fact, the colder it gets, the louder the buzzing. The bees huddle together in what's called a winter grape for warmth. Even in freezing temperatures, it's a cozy 68 degrees Fahrenheit on the inside. The colony has shrunk, but it still has about 20,000 members. The bees flap their wings to increase their body temperature and generate heat, like thousands of tiny stoves. It's warmer at the center, so they rotate places to make sure every bee gets some time in the hot spot. The heat from their beating wings melts the honey they stored in the summer. They pass it to one another from mouth to mouth. Thanks to teamwork, somewhere in the middle of the teeming hive, the most important member of the colony survives, their queen. As temperatures creep above 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the worst of the freeze retreats. Spring is still a long way off, but it only takes the faintest hint of warmth for snowdrops and crocuses to bloom. The tiny hike in temperature is enough for life to start stirring underground. Brown dots appear in the earwig's eggs. A shell bursts open, and a baby earwig struggles to emerge. The brown dots are the eyes. Like the dragonfly, the larva is called a nymph, a poetic name for a larva that already resembles its imposing parents. It's still quite transparent. But with every casting of its skin, it will look more and more like its mother. Their shells quickly grow darker. Late hatchers need to get a move on. Because what looks like a harmless ball game actually has murderous intent. Hungry earwig nymphs are trying to crack the shells and eat their sibling. Those who succeed get a meal and calories that could make the difference between life and death. Above ground, sunshine unfurls the leaves and blossoms. A supply of food for the first bees venturing out. They must replenish the depleted stocks of food back in the hive. They return home to a gruesome scene. Hundreds of dead bees littered outside the hive. The pile of corpses is part of an essential spring cleaning to get ready for the next stage of the hive's life cycle. These are winter bees that kept the colony alive through the cold, but have died throughout the winter. A spring cleaning. The bees clear out the corpses for the health of the hive. Inside, the colony prepares for summer. Having survived the winter in the safety of the hive, the queen is already doing her job of repopulating it. She lays one egg after another, as many as 2,000 a day. By the end of the year, she will have laid up to 200,000 eggs. Every egg has its own private cell. There, the workers look after it until the larva reaches the pupa stage. In another cell, the big moment has arrived. Attended by workers, a summer bee is emerging. It must chew its way out of its waxy cell. Like all new workers, it will spend its first few days helping to groom the queen before flying out to forage for food. Outside, greenery bursts forth as the temperature rises. Taking advantage of the warmer weather, the earwig mother has foraged above ground and brought home a breakfast of fresh leaves for her brood. Earwigs aren't just predators, they're omnivores. And the growing nymphs are always hungry. Their shells are still translucent, so as they eat, their vegetarian meal turns them a vivid green. Above ground, the weather springs a surprise. It's not falling blossoms, but the return of snow. Unwilling to give up yet, winter mounts a comeback. The sudden chill could spell disaster not just for blossom trees, but also for insects. In the breeding chamber of the earwigs, the return of winter brings a sacrifice. The earwig mother, exhausted herself caring for her young, and dies. To her ungrateful offspring, she's just another food source. The earwig nymphs crack open her shell with their mouths and tuck in. Her final macabre gift to her brood is to give them the calories they need to survive till they reach maturity. But winter only has a brief reappearance. As the days get longer, love is in the air. Birds choose their partners. And the first chicks hatch. The blooming season brings food from many species: marsh marigold, catkins, and aquatic plants. Amid the reeds, common toads begin mating, several smaller males competing for one female. Only one male wins. As the mating toads swim, their 3-foot-long string of eggs trails behind them. When the tadpoles hatch, some will provide precious calories for reawakening hungry water insects. As the water warms up, the metabolism of the great diving beetle increases. It sets off to hunt again to make up for its winter fast. Almost invisible, a dragonfly nymph stalks its prey. A toad tadpole. The nymph's mouthparts are cleverly adapted to shoot forward and catch prey at a distance. The great diving beetle quickly reproduces after the winter. Its swimming larva develops fast and is already a skilled aquatic hunter. Strong enough to kill a toad tadpole almost as big as itself. Its voracious appetite will allow it to pupate into an adult beetle in a few months, before the next winter sets in. As the mercury surges upwards, different species of dragonfly nymphs emerge from the water to climb the reeds and clamber out of their exoskeleton. After pumping up their wings and allowing them to harden, they are ready to fly and find a mate. Out in the meadow, a young hornet queen who survived the winter has found a suitable tree hole to start a new colony. She must start from scratch, single-handedly, build the nest, forage for food, lay the eggs, feed her growing larvae. It's a round-the-clock job. and it lasts for weeks. Finally, 14 days after laying her first egg, the hard work pays off. Returning to the nest with food, she finds her first hatchling, which immediately starts looking after its sibling larvae. Now, the queen has a nanny in the nursery. She's still the breadwinner, bringing food she pre-chews for the infants. But they both share feeding duties. A few days later, she gets a second helper. There are many hungry mouths to feed. Two or 3 days after they pupate, new workers will join the hunt for food. Tree sap is perfect, full of energy-rich sugar. In the forest, many trees are budding. A giant oak unfurls its leaves. The winter moth caterpillars have emerged on the oak tree. They're little more than feeding machines. They must consume all the calories they can so that when they briefly emerge as moths next winter, they'll have enough energy to mate. On the forest floor, a fire salamander appears, having survived the winter sheltering in a frost-free fissure or cave. A dormouse wakes from its hibernation. And finally, the stag beetle that waited patiently on its back now emerges from its subterranean winter home. His first instinct? To find a mate. He picks up the pheromones of a nearby female. But he's not the only one attracted to her scent. When two males meet, the stage is set for battle. The male's antlers are actually part of its jaw. But like the deer they take their name from, they use them as weapons. The aim is to throw their rival on his back, or right out of the tree. The winner's prize is to mate with the female. A male stag beetle is enormously strong for its size, able to lift 100 times its own weight. Its jaws exert huge force. A bite can kill its rival. This loser is lucky. He survives the fall. The winner wastes no time claiming his prize. The pairing is businesslike. Like her mother before her, the female will lay her eggs amid the rotting roots of a dead tree, food for her larvae when they hatch. Nourished on the sap of growing trees, the hornet colony expands. Dozens of workers now bring not only food, but also decaying wood, bitten off with their sharp jaws. Mixed with saliva and thoroughly chewed, the wood pulp is the bricks and mortar for the growing nest. These intricate castles can reach as much as 20 inches high. The workers constantly add new floors and chambers. When it's finally ready, this year's new queen can fulfill her primary role: to fill the cells with her eggs. Laying is hungry work, so the workers regurgitate the food they have gathered to feed their queen. It's all to ensure their colony grows and thrives. Becoming a hornet nation for one brief summer. Color and life is everywhere now, providing a sumptuous feast for the baby earwigs that forage above ground. Ladybugs hunt for ladybug love. And the red admirals are back. Not the ones who migrated south before the winter, but a new generation, hatched in southern Europe and now back in the north for the summer. Buzzing and humming fills the air. A time to feed, to breed, and to prepare for the next winter to come.